And we woke up to the news this morning that Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida sent 2 plane loads of migrants to Martha's Vineyard off the coast of Massachusetts, including kids and whatnot. And I'm not saying this is not a one-for-one. This is not a parallel here in any way. But it does address some of the same themes.
You read the banner. I mean, that's CNN's John Berman comparing the migrant shipments to Martha's Vineyard to the Holocaust.
I'm sorry, but I think those are 2 very different things.
This is the Holocaust, folks. Okay. Like when millions of people, they were shoved onto trains against their will, starved, killed. He's comparing an air-conditioned, all expenses paid, chartered airplane, private jet, to the luxurious, clean, protected Martha's Vineyard, to the worst atrocity in modern history of humanity. I mean, this is why they are like overhauling that network right now, folks. I mean, how historically illiterate, a broadcast failure on epic levels. Anyone who uses the word Holocaust should obviously tread very, very lightly on that stuff. But for reference, if John Berman thinks that these 50 migrants are suffering so bad, perhaps he should tune into the, well, let's call it the ever-reliable MSNBC coverage.
They left here a few minutes ago. They moved to Cape Cod, to the Joint Base in Cape Cod, with new clothes, new cell phones, having talked to lawyers for the first time and saying that they were actually brought to paradise.
Good.
And joining to discuss is former Associate Political Director for the Reagan White House and columnist for the American Spectator, Jeffrey Lord. Jeffrey, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are we?
We're good. I mean, going off of that soundbite, it sounds like the migrants not in the worst situation. They're getting clean clothes. They're getting phones. Your comments?
Yeah, I mean, I have seen all sorts of comments. One of my favorites was from AOC, something to the effect of how much inhumanity was being shown and all of this kind of thing. She seems to forget that Joe Biden himself was having these kind of folks whisked off into the middle of the night and distributed around America. So it's already been done. And if it was okay for Joe Biden, I don't understand what's wrong with it now.
Jeff, the irony of this, too, is like, okay, the Biden model for dealing with this in liberal Massachusetts is, 50 migrants, sending 125 Army National Guard folks to whisk them off the island, deport them, if you will. I mean, the utter hypocrisy of this is just glaring.
Well, not to put too fine a point on it, but these are, as liberals would like to say, people of color. I think Martha's Vineyard is like something like 90% white. I find this very, very interesting. I mean, the essence of the point here is when called to stand up for their own principles. I mean, they don't care that people are flooding over the southern border, tens and tens and tens of thousands, and these small towns on the border can't cope, and they don't care. But suddenly, when it's in their own backyard, oh, this is a national disaster, which says everything you need to know about these folks.
Senator Elizabeth Warren also tweeted out that we're exploiting vulnerable people for political stunts. And then she went on to say that they're working to ensure they have the resources for the people here. But what we're saying right now is that's almost hypocritical as well. The resources. They sent the National Guard out there to take care of them. Did they have the resources?
Yeah, you know, I grew up in Massachusetts, and I must say, because my parents were Long Islanders, I never got to the Vineyard. But I had plenty of friends who did. This is a pretty nice place. If you're going to be shipped somewhere in America, that would be on the A list. Yeah. And the fact that they're getting to do this, I think they are very grateful. Good Lord, this is heaven compared to where they came from.
Well, that's actually interesting because the talking point from the liberal media is, oh, these people have it so bad. They're pawns. They're being trafficked. They're being, they're getting there like, this is great. I was just shipped to paradise. I mean, they're like, I get food, I get clothes, I get an iPhone. Like half my buddies drowned in the Rio Grande coming across the border, and now I'm sitting in Martha's Vineyard with the former, president of the United States. Like, great news, huh?
Yeah, they get their own iPhone, but Mike Lindell doesn't get to keep his. I find this very interesting in many ways.
It's unbelievable.
One thing, too, with all these reports we're seeing from the left side is, at what point did they just go talk to the migrants? Instead of making claims, comparing it to the Holocaust, maybe just ask them, are they actually suffering? Are they having a hard time?
Right, right. I mean, with all due respect, I know John Berman. I just think that kind of a comment is shameful. What in the world was Ken Burns thinking here? If this is authoritarianism, then what about whisking them off in the middle of the night and dropping them around in Westchester County in New York, or all of these other places that they were being taken to by the Biden administration? I guess that's authoritarianism. I mean, they ought to be ashamed of what they're doing with this.
Well, the irony, Jeff, is that they're literally saying, like, we want the, in Massachusetts, in Martha's Vineyard, they have the signs in the stores, on the yards. They're like, we welcome all. And so it's like, great, you want them? You got it. You say you have the resources and you're willing to take care of these people? Fantastic. But when it comes to reality, like you were saying, but NBC, they were comparing migrants to trash twice. And they've since deleted this tweet. I guess this is unbelievable. It says right here, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis sending asylum seekers to Martha's Vineyard is just like me taking my trash out and driving to different areas where I live and just throwing my trash there. A founding member of the foundation which helps refugees says. What?
You can't make this up. I mean, if we had to draw up every stereotype of the modern left, we wouldn't have to draw any longer, because this is it right here.
Yeah.
They say things, they don't mean them. They virtue signal, and yet when push comes to shove, they're not ready to stand up for their principles. And that poster, when I saw that poster, I couldn't stop laughing. I mean, what are they thinking when they put that kind of thing out there and then demonstrate for all the world to see that they don't mean a word of it?
Yeah, that tweet leaves me speechless. I don't know how you make any kind of comparison like that. These are real living people. They have lives, they have families, they're trying to figure it out. It's not simple terms.
Right. But Jeff, when we dissect this whole thing, this is 50 migrants. We talked about this yesterday, where you'd have to add 28,000 more migrants to Martha's Vineyard to make it equal to Del Rio, Texas.
And call it a crisis.
And they call 50 migrants a crisis. Del Rio has 28,000 more people in proportionally. And they're supposed to just deal with this? Like, oh, it's fine if it's not in my backyard, right?
Right. NIMBY is the expression, right? NIMBY, not in my backyard.
Yeah.
And I first learned that when I worked at HUD, and we were dealing with liberals who wanted all sorts of public housing. They just didn't want it in their neighborhood.
That's actually very true.
Some things never change.
Well, in my hometown of Greenwich, they're doing this stupid thing called 830G, where it's exactly that. It's like, well, the state requires a minimum number of low-income housing, and all these liberals are like, this is great, we're going to do it, but not near me. I told our mayor, our first selectman, I said, look, hey, Fred, how about you do this? Because I think he has final approval on like the zoning and stuff. I said, why don't you do this? Approve the first, you can approve any one you want. Approve the first one on the street of our current governor, Ned Lamont. And we can't build any until we build one there. That law will change tomorrow.
Yes, it would. I mean, this is just pathetic. And I certainly hope, and I think we're getting indications that Governor DeSantis and Governor Abbott are not going to let up with this. I think that there have been more on the way to Kamala Harris's vice presidential residence, and she says there's no problem at the border. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Well, there's not. Now there's a problem at her border.
Not only this, what does it mean for voters? Because we have Democrats on the left saying that this is just political posturing. They're trying to make a political point. We know midterms are coming up, and we know that Republicans are also saying, we're overwhelmed. You guys made all of these claims. You're not doing anything, so deal with the problem that you wanted.
Well, I went back and took a look. There was a column by the columnist Cal Thomas back in February in which he went through in some detail how the media was ignoring the presence of all these illegals on the border, that it just wasn't a story for them. That's not the case anymore, and for which we have Governor DeSantis in particular to thank. I mean, the media needs to know what is, and report on what is going on here. And outside of, Newsmax and some others, this just wasn't getting done. Now it's getting done.
Yeah, you got to force the hand on this one. And my problem is, how many migrants that NBC called trash, how many of these migrants are injured or lost or hurt, and how many people is this open border policy killing that's braving these desert conditions, giving their life savings to coyotes. And then on top of that, the influx of and lack of resources on these border towns that just can't support them. I mean, that's the big argument, Jeff, is that it's $1,200 to ship one of these guys up to Martha's Vineyard, but it's like countless dollars, 10, 20, 30,000 to keep them indefinitely, not only in our prisons, our court systems, and things like that. So unbelievable. Jeff Lord, we appreciate you being here.